brilliant that we've got a home series, brilliant that we're going into the cauldron that will be Australia, now the Commonwealth Games champions, and great that we have Fast Five back on kind of the international calendar. With having competition so soon after a major tournament, in what is still a massive year as we head towards the World Cup in Cape Town, I think it's perfect because it's turned our attention firmly on looking forward, reflecting quickly but accurately in terms of where we feel we came out of the Commonwealth Games and what do we now want to focus our attention on and on who. And I think in part, obviously, as you say, the fact that things are so close together, it forced us to an extent to look a little bit broader across our player group. But I think our intention would always have been to kind of open that aperture up a tiny bit after a Commonwealth Games campaign. With the natural kind of attrition of Stacey and Ebony retiring, it presents opportunity. But we also know that we've had players that have been very close to and very much part of our campaign leading up to Commonwealth Games who didn't make that final 12, who absolutely are deserving of more opportunity and exposure on an international stage. So it was a challenge, certainly a longer process than we're used to, but it was brilliant, just to get the selectors in the room. Our processes are really robust, and I really trust in all of us that are part of that to give every athlete the best possible chance to shine. I guess what was really interesting this time is kind of thinking through our rationale and who do we believe is deserving of that, because you never really want to hand caps out easily. They should always be earned. I think that's really important. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're doing right by the team's journey now as we head towards World Cup. Some of the girls that have returned back to Australia have been in training. And I think early in the year when what was traditionally our November series and opportunity shifted so much earlier in the year, we had to apply some degree of common sense around knowing we had the Australia series and then the Uganda series at a later date move into early October, presented some challenges logistically. And we've kind of worked through that over the last 6 months and just made sure that we were being sensible around where do we want to prioritise what opportunity and exposure. So for the likes of Helen and Jo and Jiva in particular, they returned to Australia. We agreed with them that it made sense that we invested time when we go back into Australia and afford them the chance to be considered for selection for that. And I think that's important. It's okay, because I'm confident in the breadth and depth that we've got, as you say, to join the likes of Eleanor Cardwell, Sophie Drakeford-Lewis, Laura Malcolm and Imogen Allison, who are the players that people will be more familiar with from Birmingham. It gives us a great backbone and some stability in the team. But we're not, there are players in that list as well, like Fran Williams. They're not new names. They've been very much part of our journey, in particular the last couple of years. So I think to reconnect them and then with some of our emerging talent, I think is really exciting. All these players have been working tirelessly in camp and have yet to get the reward as much as others. So there's a great senior group in there, but there's also a freshness to it. And we've selected it with putting our best foot forward in mind. But we also know it's a huge challenge because Uganda will have most probably more consistency across their player group. They will feel buoyed by their performances in Commonwealth Games. They'll be confident. We all know the size of their shooting circle, which always is a bit of a challenge for us. We have to approach that quite differently, tactically. And we've got a very different defensive unit, very much changed from prior to. So the likes of Alayla and Jade and Nat in particular, that's around managing not only the short term of going through a Commonwealth Games, but also what the last 12 months has looked like and the demand on some individuals over others, and just physically readying them for some challenges that lie ahead. And so, we've arrived where we have because we're paying attention to the individual, but we're not losing sight of the fact that we want to be the best we can be in each and every competition. So exciting to see so many futures in Fast Five as well. And that's not in any way us disrespecting the value of that Fast Five tournament. I think absolutely it's acknowledging that we've got so much emerging talent that sadly have had a hiatus from international opportunities because of COVID. The senior group have put themselves through it. The conditions we've put ourselves under to make sure we could still play internationally during COVID were tough at times. And that wasn't always afforded to the younger groups through no fault of ours, but just the constraints and conditions around being allowed to play, perform, compete and travel. And they missed out on a World Youth Cup, which is really sad. So we know we've got some excellent talent that we're seeing in our Vitality Super League, and we've now expanded our Futures programme as part of assisting and supporting their development. So Fast Five, and because of its position so close to the Test Series in Australia, it really ruled out the girls that were going to Australia because of the timing of the last Test match. And it's international netball conditions, it's an international competition, it's in the home of one of the strongest netball nations in the world, so we know it's going to be followed. So I think as an environment, it's exactly the type of space where you hope some of those younger players can thrive. I think it's a great marriage for us to see Elle in that Fast Five team and that modified version of the game. And I say that really because for those that maybe don't know as much about Elle, she's been playing in the SSM with Adelaide Thunderbirds for a good few years now, and made herself known to us in terms of her eligibility and her desire to want to be considered. Elle has sat in that Adelaide Thunderbirds space as a wing attack, and then we also have seen her in the centre position. I know there's a hot debate always around kind of the wing attack position, and we've got some fantastic specialists, but maybe not as many centre wing attacks. And so I think there's a few things that play out there that I'm quite excited about. You know, Elle's been in camp. She obviously comes with that real Aussie grit, and a great consistency, ball speed, hand speed, movement is quick. You know, all of the characteristics we come to know and love, but not when we're playing against them, in terms of the speed around the Aussie mid-quarters. So it's been really a welcome addition actually into the training environment, and also holds our defence to account as well, which is great. But I think the Fast Five allows her and us just to give us some opportunity. One, just get some match minutes, get on an international stage, which she hasn't done, and also to put that centre bib on, which, you know, you could say is a bit brutal. You know, like her first experience coming in, and you know, I'm asking if she wants to go over to Fast Five and selecting her. But I think in some ways we'll find out a lot of information quickly, which I think will be good for her and us. That camp was brilliant. I loved working with the Roses and Futures staff and seeing the practitioners working alongside each other, always with the players in front and centre really. And the interactions, they're such a great group, they're so inclusive, and it just reminds you how special an environment both the players and staff are able to create and continue to cultivate here. To see the fruition of the investment in the Futures programme and the expansion of that, it's just really, it's really humbling, and it's really reassuring that we're on track and we're making good decisions with the best intentions to give England the best possible chance, not just for next year, but even more importantly with that group, it will be for the years beyond that. What I'm hopeful for in another 5 or 6 weeks' time is we have, to a lesser or greater extent, seen 28 players under those international conditions. We can then align that with what we anticipated or forecasted that we would see based on what we're seeing in the training environment. And hopefully we've built some greater connections, either reinforce those more stable and familiar ones, but introduce some new connections which give us a little bit more choice as we head towards the World Cup campaign. And I don't think this is about needing to start from scratch. I think it's about just refining and that natural evolution of a team where you may see some different faces in a World Cup team, naturally, because we know we're not going to see Stacey and Ebony. But I think more than that, you know, like we speak a lot now about the breadth and depth of the team. And I think these recent selections and these upcoming competitions will hopefully further confirm that we're doing good stuff in that space. And I hope as many of them can shine as possible. The competition amongst the world's top 4 or 5 teams it's at its fiercest ever. The margins we know are really tight, and we're really enjoying trying to make sure that we remain part of that top order in world netball. The really hard bit, and the bit that most probably hit hardest obviously after the Commonwealth Games, is it's a bit of a roll of the dice, in particular I think between the teams ranked 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And we fell the wrong side of that, which really hurt. But I think when we come out the other side and we think back to the journey up until that point and the opportunity that lay ahead, we are in the mix with these teams, but we're not consistent yet. And I don't think we could expect ourselves to be consistent because it takes time. There's no margin to have an off day. You know, there's no margin to make a poor decision or to just drop 1 or 2% less than the previous match. And I think we were found out in those last 2 games against 2 of the best teams. Well, we know they are the 2 best teams in the world. We lost to teams ranked above us. There's no disgrace in that, but we're hungry and have a desire to be better next time. And I believe that this group can be. I think we've got a great generation coming through. I love the fact that our fans and our support network expect us to win. And I'm proud of the fact that we've shown that we can get some success, but it eluded us this time in a major tournament. And I don't think that should be mistaken for the fact that we haven't paid real attention to where from this point forwards we want to get better and improve ourselves. And we go in and out of any opportunity, in particular the next few weeks, just wanting to make sure that we're better than we were then, but we're also better during those competitions as well. The challenge next year, I think, will be harder. I think that is the reality of global netball right now. And I, for one, am prepared to be brave and have courage and embrace that as a brilliant opportunity, and to be leading this Roses generation at a time where global netball is at its best and most competitive. And no longer can we predict the scores of an England versus New Zealand match or an Australia versus Jamaica game. And we've got to be, I think we need to embrace and celebrate that and not be fearful of it. Despite all of the emotional roller coasters that will come, win, lose or draw, I think if you take a step back, it's a brilliant time to be involved in international netball.